Chosen one, this is not just another message about your future. This is about the one small choice you keep trying to avoid, the one you keep postponing, the one you keep explaining away, the one you keep calling not a big deal, even though something deep inside you knows it is connected to the next version of your life. God is not asking you to understand the entire road today. He is not asking you to see every door, every answer, every person, every outcome, every detail, every reason. He is asking you to stop ignoring the one step He has already placed in front of you. And this is why this message may feel uncomfortable. Because sometimes the thing blocking your future is not a demon, not an enemy, not a closed door, not a lack of talent, not a lack of prayer, and not even a lack of opportunity. Sometimes the thing blocking your future is the one simple act of obedience you keep delaying because it looks too small to matter. But heaven does not measure small the way the world measures small. A seed looks small until you understand what is hidden inside it. A key looks small until you realize it opens the door. A word looks small until it breaks a curse. A decision looks small until it becomes the turning point your whole life was waiting for. And I need you to hear this carefully. The future God has prepared for you may not be waiting behind some dramatic event. It may be waiting behind one quiet yes, one message, one beginning, one goodbye, one surrender, one boundary, one honest conversation, one act of forgiveness, one act of courage, one moment where you stop asking fear for permission and finally agree with what God has been showing you. This is not random. There is a divine appointment over this moment, and it is touching the exact place where your future has been waiting for your agreement. The choice may be to begin. The choice may be to stop. The choice may be to forgive. The choice may be to leave. The choice may be to speak. The choice may be to stay silent and let God defend what you no longer need to explain. The choice may be to stop feeding a connection that drains your peace. The choice may be to finally start the work you keep postponing because you are afraid it will expose how much you care. The choice may be to rest because your body has been begging for recovery while your fear keeps calling exhaustion, faithfulness. The choice may be to say no because access to you is not the same thing as love. The choice may be to stop asking for another sign when God has already given you enough light for the next step. Do not wait for the mountain to move if God has already asked you to pick up the seed. Because Ruth made one choice. David showed up for one ordinary assignment. Esther opened her mouth at one appointed moment. Joseph remained faithful in places that looked like delay, betrayal, and forgotten rooms. None of them saw the whole future at first. They only held the seed. And I hear this strongly for someone listening right now. The future was not waiting for you to become fearless. It was waiting for you to become faithful while fear was still talking. That sentence is not for everybody, but it is for someone. The future was not waiting for you to become fearless. It was waiting for you to become faithful while fear was still talking. Because this is where many chosen ones miss the turn. They are not ignoring God because they do not care. They are not delaying because they are lazy. They are not stuck because they have no calling. Many times, they are standing so close to the doorway that it no longer looks like a doorway. It looks ordinary. It looks small. It looks inconvenient. It looks like something that can wait until tomorrow. But some tomorrows are built by what you agree to today. And I hear the Father saying, I did not ask you for the whole road. I asked you for one faithful step. Stay with this message until the end, because you are going to receive 3 things you may need right now. First, you will learn how to recognize the small choice God has been bringing back to your attention. Second, you will understand why fear becomes so loud around simple obedience. And third, before this message ends, you will be given a clear way to know whether the step in front of you is wisdom, fear, timing, or alignment. This is not about pressure. This is about clarity. This is about not missing the quiet door because you were waiting for a louder one. And later in this message, I will also speak about something very practical for those who feel like their mind has been full of static, because sometimes the problem is not that God has not spoken. Sometimes the problem is that your inner world has become too loud to recognize the instruction clearly. If you have been overthinking, delaying, replaying the same decision, asking for another sign, and still feeling mentally foggy, I want you to stay with me. There is a simple 7-minute listening practice I will mention later that many people use to support focus and inner clarity. It is not a replacement for prayer. It is not a replacement for obedience. It is not a magic shortcut, but it may help create a calmer inner environment where the next step becomes easier to recognize. But before we talk about any tool, any practice, or any support, you need to understand the deeper truth. God is not trying to overwhelm you. He is trying to bring you into agreement. Because there is a reason this message feels personal. It is not only speaking to your future, it is speaking to the part of you that already knows you cannot keep living in delay and still call it preparation. You may have noticed it already. There is a thought that keeps returning. It may not come with noise. It may not come with drama. It may not come with a full explanation, but it returns while you are washing dishes. It returns while you are lying in bed. It returns when the room gets quiet. It returns after you pray. It returns after you try to distract yourself. It returns after you promise yourself that you will think about it later. That repeated thought may not be anxiety. It may be instruction. Of course, not every thought is from God. Not every feeling deserves your obedience. Not every emotion is a command. Not every open door is divine. Not every closed door is rejection. Not every fear means stop. But there is a certain kind of thought that does not push you into panic. It simply stands there, steady, patient, clear. It does not manipulate you. It does not flatter your ego. It does not feed revenge. It does not ask you to become reckless. It does not demand that you destroy your life in one dramatic moment. It keeps inviting you into honesty, and that is why you cannot shake it. You can ignore it, but it returns. You can distract yourself, but it returns. You can ask other people, but it returns. You can make excuses, but it returns. You can tell yourself the timing is not right, but it returns. Because some instructions do not leave just because you are afraid of them. They wait. They stand. They keep appearing at the edge of your spirit until you finally become honest enough to ask, God, is this the step you have been showing me? And another thing you may have noticed is that the easy choice does not feel as peaceful as it used to. It still looks safe from the outside. It still makes sense to people who do not carry your assignment. It still seems reasonable when you explain it with your mouth. You can defend it. You can justify it. You can make it sound mature. You can make it sound careful. You can make it sound spiritual. But deep inside, something feels heavy. You can choose the old way and still function. You can choose the familiar path and still look normal. You can keep going through the motions and nobody may know the difference. But you will know. Your spirit will know. That quiet place inside you will know that you are choosing comfort over calling. And that does not mean God is angry with you. It means your old life is losing its ability to comfort you. There was a time when delay felt protective. Now delay feels expensive. There was a time when silence kept you safe. Now silence may be keeping you small. There was a time when waiting made sense. Now waiting may be fear wearing the clothing of wisdom. There was a time when overthinking felt like preparation. Now overthinking has become a prison with religious language. There was a time when asking for another sign felt like discernment. Now you know, deep down, that another sign may not be what you need. You may need obedience. This is why the small choice feels heavier than it should. It is not because the action itself is complicated. It is because the choice is connected to identity. You are not just deciding what to do. You are deciding which version of you gets to lead. The old version of you waits until every person understands. The becoming version of you understands that obedience is not always public. The old version waits until fear disappears. The becoming version moves when God gives enough light for the next step. The old version needs certainty before movement. The becoming version recognizes that faith often begins before the full map is visible. The old version keeps checking if everybody approves. The becoming version learns that private confirmation is still confirmation. The old version thinks peace means nothing will stretch you. The becoming version understands that true peace can still require courage. And chosen one, this is where the battle becomes quiet. Not everyone will see it. Not everyone will understand why something so small feels so intense. They may say, just do it. Or they may say, why does it matter so much? But they do not know what this choice touches inside you. They do not know the history behind your hesitation. They do not know the cost of the last time you trusted. They do not know how long it took for you to rebuild your courage after disappointment, betrayal, rejection, or silence. They do not know what happened the last time you tried to move forward and felt unsupported. They do not know how many nights you prayed for clarity while still feeling afraid of the answer. But God knows. He knows why you hesitate. He knows why you ask for one more sign. He knows why you call it discernment when sometimes it is fear. He knows why you keep checking the same door, praying over the same decision, replaying the same conversation, and wondering if you are ready enough. And He is not mocking you for that. He is not standing over you with shame. He is not saying, how could you still be afraid? He is saying, I know what made you afraid. I know what happened when you moved before and felt unsupported. I know what happened when you trusted someone and they mishandled your heart. I know what happened when you obeyed and the result did not look like what you expected. I know what happened when you spoke and were misunderstood. I know what happened when you hoped and felt embarrassed by disappointment. I know what happened when you believed and the door still closed. But now, my child, do not let an old wound become the ruler of a new season. That sentence is for someone. Do not let an old wound become the ruler of a new season. Because sometimes the thing blocking the future is not a person. It is not a closed door. It is not even a lack of opportunity. Sometimes the thing blocking the future is the agreement you keep making with the version of you that survived but was never meant to lead forever. That version protected you. Honor that. That version helped you get through nights when no one knew the weight you were carrying. Respect that. That version learned how to stay quiet, stay guarded, stay prepared, stay distant, stay careful. Understand that. But survival is not the same as surrender. Protection is not the same as purpose. Caution is not the same as calling. And fear is not wisdom just because it uses careful words. You were not rescued from the last season just to spend the rest of your life asking fear for permission. You were not healed from what broke you just to bow to the memory of it forever. You were not carried through the wilderness just to build a house there and call it safety. God did not preserve you so you could remain loyal to the thing He delivered you from. This is why God often begins with one small choice. Because a small choice reveals who is really leading. It reveals whether your future is being led by the wound or by the word. It reveals whether your decisions are being shaped by trust or by trauma. It reveals whether you are still trying to be safe in a place God has already called you to leave. And leaving does not always mean leaving a person. Sometimes it means leaving a pattern, leaving a reaction, leaving a version of yourself that needs to explain everything, leaving the habit of asking people to approve what God already confirmed in private, leaving the need to answer every accusation, leaving the addiction to being understood by people who benefit from your confusion, leaving the cycle of praying for change while refusing the first instruction connected to change. You may be standing at a threshold right now. A threshold is a strange place. You are not where you used to be, but you are not fully where you are going. You can feel the old season behind you, but you cannot yet see the full shape of the new one. You feel pulled forward and pulled backward at the same time. One part of you wants to trust. Another part of you wants to return to what is familiar, even if familiar is heavy. One part of you knows God is calling you higher. Another part of you wants to stay where nothing demands a new level of faith. That is why thresholds require discernment. They are not just moments of excitement. They are moments of testing. Not testing to prove whether God loves you. That has already been settled. Testing to reveal whether you are ready to agree with the life He has been preparing you for. Because preparation is not always visible. David was being prepared when he was unseen in the field. Ruth was being prepared when she chose loyalty in grief. Esther was being prepared when she was hidden before she was positioned. Joseph was being prepared in places that looked like setbacks, delays, betrayals, and forgotten rooms. God has always been able to hide a future inside an ordinary day. And that is what this message is trying to show you. The small choice before you may not look impressive, but it may carry the pattern of your next season. Maybe the choice is to stop feeding a conversation that drains your peace. Maybe the choice is to begin the work you keep postponing because you are afraid it will expose how much you care. Maybe the choice is to send the message, not to control the outcome, but to release the obedience. Maybe the choice is to forgive, not because what happened was acceptable, but because you are tired of letting that pain occupy the center of your future. Maybe the choice is to rest because your nervous system has mistaken exhaustion for faithfulness. Maybe the choice is to say no because access to you is not the same as love. Maybe the choice is to stop asking for a sign and start honoring the one you already received. Maybe the choice is to start again quietly, without announcing it to people who only know how to doubt you. Maybe the choice is to let God defend you instead of exhausting yourself trying to prove what heaven already knows. Chosen one, the small choice is not small when it breaks a cycle. It is not small when it ends a delay. It is not small when it teaches your body that obedience does not have to be panic. It is not small when it tells your spirit, we are no longer living beneath what God already showed us. There is a reason you have been more sensitive lately. There is a reason certain rooms feel heavier. There is a reason certain conversations drain you faster than they used to. There is a reason old distractions do not satisfy you anymore. There is a reason you can no longer pretend that the familiar path is peaceful. There is a reason the thing you used to tolerate now feels unbearable. There is a reason your spirit keeps pulling away from what your old self kept running back to. That is not confusion. That is awakening. God is loosening your attachment to what cannot go with you. And this is important. The choice may not produce instant proof. You may not take the step and immediately see everything change. You may not receive applause. You may not receive confirmation from the people around you. You may not feel fireworks in your chest. You may not hear a dramatic sound from heaven. You may not see the door swing open the second you obey. But a seed does not become a tree the moment it touches the soil. It disappears first. It goes hidden first. It works beneath the surface first. And many chosen ones get discouraged because they obey once and then look around for the whole harvest. They take one step and immediately ask, where is the breakthrough? They plant one seed and immediately ask, where is the fruit? They make one choice and immediately ask, why does everything still look the same? But God is not only interested in harvest, He is interested in formation. He is not only asking what you can receive, He is asking what you can become. So do not despise the hidden beginning. Do not mock the quiet step. Do not call it meaningless just because no one else can see what it cost you. Some of the most important agreements you will ever make with God will happen in private. No audience, no announcement, no dramatic proof. Just you, the choice, the fear, the whisper, and the decision to move anyway. And maybe that is why this season has felt so intense. Not because you are failing, not because God has left you, not because your future disappeared, but because the small places are where the deep work is happening. You are learning how to obey without being seen. You are learning how to choose without being pushed. You are learning how to move without needing every detail. You are learning how to trust the voice of God more than the voice of your old fear, and that is not a small thing. But there is something else you need to understand before we go deeper. Sometimes, the reason you cannot recognize the small choice clearly is not because God is silent. Sometimes it is because your inner world has become too loud. Your mind has been carrying pressure. Your emotions have been carrying old memories. Your body has been carrying stress that you learned to call normal. Your thoughts have been moving so fast that even a simple instruction feels complicated. And when your inner world is trapped in survival, even divine direction can feel like static. You may be spiritually sensitive and mentally exhausted at the same time. You may be called and still foggy. You may be chosen and still overwhelmed. You may have divine direction near you, but your inner world is full of noise. And this is where many people shame themselves. They say, maybe I do not have enough faith. Maybe I am not spiritual enough. Maybe God is not speaking to me. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I am not one of the people who can hear clearly. But lack of clarity is not always lack of faith. Sometimes your mind has been living in survival for so long that peace feels unfamiliar. Sometimes your nervous system has been trained to scan for danger more than it receives direction. Sometimes your thoughts are moving so fast that even a quiet divine instruction gets buried under pressure, fear, and old emotional noise. Think of it like a radio. The signal may be present, but if the dial is surrounded by static, you cannot hear the music clearly. You do not need to blame the music. You do not need to shame the radio. You need recalibration. And that is why, later in this message, I will speak more clearly about the 7-minute clarity practice I mentioned earlier. It is called the Genius Song. It is designed as a simple audio practice to support focus, mental stillness, and a clearer inner environment. Again, it is not a replacement for prayer. It is not a replacement for wisdom. It is not a promise that every person will experience the same result. But if your mind has been noisy and your next step has felt buried under fear, this may be a helpful support for you. For now, do not rush toward the tool. Return to the truth. The tool can support clarity, but only your obedience can plant the seed. The choice is not only about what you do next. It is about which future gets permission to find you. Because every time you choose fear, you give the old season another day of authority. Every time you choose delay, you teach your future to wait outside the door. Every time you choose obedience, even in a small way, you open a path the old version of you could never walk. So listen carefully. The decision in front of you may look ordinary, but it is carrying evidence. Evidence of who you are becoming. Evidence of what you now value. Evidence that the wilderness did not destroy you. Evidence that the hidden season actually formed you. Evidence that fear may still talk, but it no longer has to rule. And the next part of this message will show you why the choice is not a switch. It is a seed. And once you understand that, you will stop demanding instant proof from something God is growing in secret. Because a seed does not announce itself as a tree. It does not enter the soil with branches, fruit, shade, and proof. It enters the soil looking almost too small to matter. If you judged the seed by what you could see in the beginning, you would never understand what it was carrying. And this is how God often works with a chosen one. He places something small in your hand, and your fear says, "This cannot be enough." He gives you one quiet instruction, and your mind says, "This cannot be the answer." He asks you for one step, and your old self says, "But what about the whole road?" But heaven does not need the whole road from you today. Heaven needs agreement. And when you finally understand that, the small choice in front of you will no longer look small. It will look like the first evidence that your future has already begun, because the small choice is not a switch. It is a seed. And once you understand that, you will stop demanding instant proof from something God is growing in secret. A seed does not announce itself as a tree. It does not enter the soil with branches, fruit, shade, and visible proof. It enters the soil looking almost too small to matter. If you judged the seed by what you could see in the beginning, you would never understand what it was carrying. And this is how God often works with a chosen one. He places something small in your hand, and your fear says, "This cannot be enough." He gives you one quiet instruction, and your mind says, "This cannot be the answer." He asks you for one step, and your old self says, "But what about the whole road?" But heaven does not need the whole road from you today. Heaven needs agreement. The small choice may not instantly change the outer world the moment you make it. You may not see the phone call. You may not see the open door. You may not see the relationship shift. You may not see the financial answer. You may not see the confirmation. You may not see visible fruit right away. And if you expect instant proof, you may think nothing happened. But something does happen. The moment you choose alignment over fear, something begins to move in the unseen. The moment you choose obedience over delay, something inside you changes position. The moment you choose the quiet step God gave you instead of the dramatic step your ego wanted, your future receives a signal, not a loud signal, a holy one. It says, "I am ready to stop negotiating with the old pattern." It says, "I am ready to stop worshipping certainty." It says, "I am ready to stop calling fear wisdom." It says, "I am ready to let God lead me one step at a time." That is why the choice may feel small to the world, but massive inside your spirit. The world measures by visibility. God measures by obedience. The world asks, "How big does it look?" God asks, "How much trust did it require?" Ruth did not know that one decision to stay would place her inside a future bigger than her grief. David did not know that showing up for one ordinary assignment would lead him into a moment where a giant would fall. Esther did not know that one courageous sentence spoken at the appointed time would become part of a deliverance story. Joseph did not know that remaining faithful in hidden places would prepare him to carry authority in visible places. They did not see the whole tree. They held the seed. And chosen one, this is where you must stop disrespecting the seed because it does not yet look like shade. The first movement of your future may look like deleting one distraction. It may look like ending one conversation. It may look like finally beginning the work you have been afraid to care about. It may look like praying with honesty instead of performance. It may look like refusing to respond from the old wound. It may look like choosing peace when drama is begging for your attention. It may look like closing a door quietly instead of making an announcement. It may look like waking up and deciding, "Today, I will not betray what God already showed me." Small does not mean powerless. Small means concentrated. A seed is small because everything inside it is folded tightly. The roots, the trunk, the branches, the fruit, the shade, the shelter, the future birds that will rest in it. All hidden in something you could hold between two fingers. That is why your small choice feels heavier than it looks. It is carrying more than today. It is carrying evidence of who you are becoming. It is carrying the end of one cycle and the beginning of another. It is carrying the moment where fear still speaks, but obedience finally gets the final word. Now the question becomes this: how do you know which small choice is the one God is highlighting? Because not every urge is guidance. Not every emotion is instruction. Not every open door is divine. Not every closed door is rejection. Not every fear means stop. Not every opportunity is assignment. Not every delay is disobedience. And not every movement is obedience. This is where you must learn the quiet yes test. The quiet yes test is simple, but it is not shallow. It asks you to listen beneath panic, beneath pressure, beneath ego, beneath the voice that wants instant comfort, beneath the voice that wants revenge, beneath the voice that wants applause, beneath the voice that wants everyone to approve before you obey. It asks you to notice what remains after all the noise fades. The first question is this: does the thought return without needing drama? God's guidance does not always scream. Often, it returns, gently, steadily, again and again. Not to torment you, not to threaten you, not to manipulate you, but to invite you. It comes back when your pride is not performing. It comes back when no one is watching. It comes back when the room is quiet and your excuses have nothing left to say. It comes back when you are no longer trying to impress anyone. It comes back when your spirit is tired of pretending not to know. Fear usually arrives with panic. Ego usually arrives with urgency. Revenge usually arrives with heat. Pride usually arrives with the need to prove something. But wisdom often arrives with stillness. Wisdom does not need to scream to be real. Sometimes the quietest instruction is the one carrying the most authority. So ask yourself, does this thought return when I am not trying to force it? Does it keep appearing with a strange steadiness? Does it invite me into honesty instead of panic? Does it challenge me without destroying my peace? Does it remain after the emotional storm passes? If yes, pay attention. That repeated thought may not be random. It may be the seed God keeps placing in your hand. The second question is this: does this choice ask you to become more honest, not more impressive? This matters deeply, because the ego loves choices that make you look powerful. But God often gives choices that make you honest. A God-given step will not always make you look impressive in the beginning. Sometimes it will make you look humble. Sometimes it will make you look quiet. Sometimes it will make you look like you are losing a battle you were never called to fight. Sometimes it will ask you to stop proving, stop chasing, stop defending, stop explaining, stop returning to the same fire and calling it warmth. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is not look strong in front of people. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is tell the truth in the place where you have been hiding. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is stop performing peace while your soul is begging for honesty. The right choice may not feed your image. It may free your soul. And many chosen ones struggle here because they are used to surviving through image. They learn to look okay. They learn to sound spiritual. They learn to smile through heaviness. They learn to carry what was never theirs. They learn to be useful so they would not be abandoned. They learn to be quiet so they would not be attacked. They learn to over-explain so they would not be misunderstood. But the next season may not require you to look more impressive. It may require you to become more honest. Honest about what drains you. Honest about what God already said. Honest about what you keep delaying. Honest about what you are afraid to begin. Honest about the door that no longer carries peace. Honest about the person you keep giving access to, even though your spirit knows the connection is costing you. Honest about the dream you keep burying because caring about it makes you feel vulnerable. Honest about the fact that you do not need another sign as much as you need the courage to obey the sign you already received. The third question is this: after the first wave of fear passes, is there a deeper peace beneath it? Not comfort, peace. There is a difference. Comfort says, stay where nothing challenges you. Peace says, move where God is calling you, even if your hands shake. Comfort says, avoid the conversation. Peace says, speak with humility and release the outcome. Comfort says, keep the door open because being alone feels frightening. Peace says, close what keeps poisoning your spirit. Comfort says, delay until you feel completely safe. Peace says, take the clean step while trusting God with what you cannot control. Comfort protects the old version. Peace prepares the new one. So when you think about the choice, do not only ask, does this scare me? Ask, what remains after the fear has spoken? Is there a quiet knowing still standing there? Is there a clean feeling beneath the trembling? Is there a sense that this step, though difficult, is honest? Is there a part of you that feels lighter when you imagine obeying, even if another part of you feels afraid? That is often where the answer lives. Not in the first wave of emotion, not in the first panic, not in the first excuse, but in what remains after the noise fades. The fourth question is this: does the choice align with your calling, or does it protect your coping pattern? This one matters because many chosen ones confuse coping with wisdom. You learn to stay quiet because speaking once cost you something. You learn to avoid beginnings because disappointment taught you not to hope too loudly. You learn to overthink because being surprised by pain made you want to control every possible outcome. You learn to keep people close even when they drained you, because losing people once felt unbearable. You learn to be needed because being loved felt uncertain. You learn to say yes because saying no once created conflict. You learn to shrink because shining made other people uncomfortable. But coping is not calling. The pattern that helped you survive the last season may become the very prison that keeps you out of the next one. So ask yourself inside, without rushing, without proving, without performing, does this door lead me toward the person God has been forming in me? Or does it keep me loyal to the person fear trained me to be? Do not rush the answer. Let the question sit in the deepest part of you, because the real answer is not always the one that feels easiest. It is the one that feels clean after the noise fades. And this is why fear becomes so clever at this stage. Fear does not always sound like panic. Sometimes fear sounds mature. Sometimes fear sounds responsible. Sometimes fear sounds spiritual. Sometimes fear says, wait for one more sign. Sometimes fear says, do not move until everyone understands. Sometimes fear says, maybe you are being selfish. Sometimes fear says, what if you ruin everything? Sometimes fear says, this is not the right time, when the truth is, this may be the first time you have been clear enough to obey. Fear will call delay wisdom. Fear will call hiding humility. Fear will call people-pleasing love. Fear will call self-betrayal patience. Fear will call disobedience discernment. Fear will call exhaustion commitment. Fear will call overthinking preparation. Fear will call control responsibility. And that is why you cannot only listen to the loudest voice inside you. The loudest voice is not always the truest voice. The most familiar voice is not always God. Sometimes the voice you trust most is simply the voice you have obeyed the longest. Chosen one, the old pattern has been talking for years. It knows your wounds. It knows your hesitation. It knows which memory to bring up when you are about to move. It knows how to remind you of the person who left, the time you failed, the door that closed, the prayer that seemed unanswered, the moment you felt foolish for believing, the season when you tried and no one supported you, the day you trusted and someone mishandled your heart. The old pattern knows how to use your past as evidence against your future, but the old pattern cannot see your whole future. It can only protect your past. That is why the choice before you feels like pressure. Not because God is trying to crush you, not because you are weak, not because you are unready, but because two versions of you are standing in the same place. One version says, stay safe. The other version says, become faithful. One version says, wait until fear leaves. The other version says, move while fear is still talking. One version says, what if this costs me? The other version says, what if staying here already has? That question is important. What if staying here already has? What if the delay has been costing you peace? What if the old pattern has been costing you clarity? What if the familiar cycle has been costing you energy? What if the relationship you keep explaining has been costing you spiritual focus? What if the comfort you keep protecting has been costing you growth? What if the decision you keep postponing has been quietly postponing the version of you that keeps trying to be born? This is not a message to rush you. It is not a message to make you reckless. It is not a message to push you into panic. It is a message to wake up the part of you that already knows the difference between fear and timing. Because timing carries peace, even when it says wait. Fear carries torment, even when it says be careful. Timing makes you more grounded. Fear makes you more divided. Timing protects what God is building. Fear protects what the old wound is afraid to release. Timing can wait without obsessing. Fear waits while replaying the same nightmare. Timing listens. Fear spirals. Timing trusts. Fear controls. Timing has peace beneath the pause. Fear has torment beneath the explanation. So do not only ask, should I move or should I wait? Ask, what spirit is leading the waiting? Is it trust or is it terror? Is it wisdom or is it avoidance? Is it God's timing or is it an old wound wearing a spiritual mask? And now we need to go even deeper, because sometimes the problem is not that God has not spoken. Sometimes the problem is that the inside of you has been too loud to recognize what He has already placed there. You can be spiritually sensitive and mentally exhausted at the same time. You can be called and still foggy. You can be chosen and still overwhelmed. You can have divine direction near you, but your inner world is full of static. And this is where many people shame themselves. They say, maybe I do not have enough faith. Maybe I am not spiritual enough. Maybe God is not speaking to me. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I am not one of the people who can hear clearly. But lack of clarity is not always lack of faith. Sometimes your mind has been carrying too much noise for too long. Sometimes your body has been living in survival for so many years that peace feels unfamiliar. Sometimes your thoughts are moving so fast that even a quiet divine instruction gets buried under pressure, fear, and old emotional memory. Think of it like a radio. The signal may be present, but if the dial is surrounded by static, you cannot hear the music clearly. You do not need to blame the music. You do not need to shame the radio. You need recalibration. And this is where I want to speak to the person who feels like this message is exposing exactly what has been happening inside you. You are not lazy. You are not faithless. You are not broken beyond repair. You may simply be mentally overloaded. Your spirit may know the next step, but your mind has been so crowded with fear, pressure, memory, and responsibility that the step feels buried under noise. That is why I mentioned earlier a simple 7-minute audio practice called the Genius Song. I am not bringing this up as a distraction from the message. I am bringing it up because this message is about clarity. This message is about hearing the quiet instruction beneath the noise. This message is about recognizing the small choice before fear turns it into a mountain. The Genius Song is a short listening practice designed around the idea of supporting focus, mental stillness, and a clearer inner environment. Some people connect this kind of practice with brainwave entrainment and gamma-related states, which are often associated with focus, learning, and those moments when the mind feels more awake and connected. But let me say this clearly. No audio track can obey for you. No tool can make the choice for you. No sound can replace prayer, surrender, wisdom, courage, or action. But the right support can help you create a calmer space inside yourself, so you can stop drowning in static and start recognizing what has been quietly standing there all along. And for someone listening, that matters, because you do not need more pressure. You do not need another person yelling at you to do better. You do not need shame. You do not need panic. You may need a few minutes a day where your mind stops fighting you long enough for clarity to rise again. That is why the Genius Song fits this message. It is headphones, 7 minutes. No complicated ritual. No long routine. No need to force yourself into silence. Just a short listening practice you can use before prayer, before journaling, before making the decision, or before taking the next clean step. And if you have been feeling mentally foggy, spiritually sensitive, emotionally tired, or trapped between knowing and overthinking, this may be a helpful tool to explore. Not because it replaces God, but because it may support the inner clarity you need to respond to what God is already showing you. The official link is in the description and pinned comment. Use that link only, because there are imitations and fake versions that use similar language but do not give you the original audio or the full bonuses. Through the official page, you will see the 7-minute audio practice, the available bonuses, and the money-back guarantee, so you are not trapped if it does not feel aligned for you. And I need you to hear this with peace. Do not buy from fear. Do not buy because you feel pressured. Do not buy because you think a tool will magically fix your life. But if your spirit feels drawn to support your clarity, and if this message is speaking directly to the fog, delay, and mental noise you have been carrying, then the link is there for you. Use it as a 7-minute clarity practice. Use it as a quiet support. Use it as a way to create space inside yourself before you take the step. Because the tool can support clarity, but obedience is still the seed. And that brings us back to the real question. Once the static begins to settle, once the excuses grow weaker, once the old fear has spoken and the deeper peace is still standing, what will you choose? Because clarity without obedience becomes another form of delay. You can understand the seed and still refuse to plant it. You can recognize the door and still stand outside it. You can feel the pull and still choose the pattern. You can know the truth and still ask fear for one more review. That is why this moment matters. God is not only giving you information, He is bringing you to a place of agreement. The choice is a seed, but your agreement is the soil. If you plant it in fear, you will keep digging it up to see if it is working. If you plant it in pride, you will want it to prove something quickly. If you plant it in comparison, you will despise its pace. If you plant it in control, you will panic when the process does not obey your timeline. But if you plant it in trust, you will allow God to grow what only He can grow. And I hear this for someone. Stop demanding a harvest from a seed you have not planted yet. Stop asking God to bless the future while refusing the first instruction connected to it. Stop waiting for the next level to become visible before you honor the small step that opens it. Stop calling yourself stuck when you have not yet obeyed the one thing that keeps returning. This is not condemnation. This is invitation. Because the Father is not saying, perform for me. He is saying, agree with me. Agree with me in the small place. Agree with me in the quiet decision. Agree with me before people understand. Agree with me before the evidence appears. Agree with me while fear is still trying to negotiate. Agree with me when the step is not impressive enough for your ego. Agree with me when the seed is still underground. Agree with me when obedience feels private. Agree with me when the old version of you wants to return to the familiar cage. And when you do, the first thing that changes may not be around you. It may be within you. Your posture changes. Your peace changes. Your tolerance changes. Your appetite changes. Your ability to return to old cycles begins to weaken. What used to tempt you begins to feel heavy. What used to intimidate you begins to lose authority. What used to control your decisions begins to sound less like truth and more like memory. That is how you know the seed is alive. Not because everything outside changes overnight, but because something inside you can no longer bow to what once controlled you. There is a moment when a chosen one stops negotiating with bondage. There is a moment when the old excuse no longer works. There is a moment when the old fear still speaks, but its voice no longer carries the same authority. There is a moment when you realize, I am not the same person who needed this pattern to survive. There is a moment when you can look at the thing that used to control you and say, I understand why I needed you before, but you cannot lead me now. That is not arrogance. That is maturity. That is healing. That is agreement. That is what happens when God forms someone in hidden places and then asks for one small yes. And this is where the final part of this message must take you, because you need to know how to move today without becoming reckless. You need to know how to test the peace beneath the pressure. You need to know how to take one step without forcing the whole future open. You need to know what to do in the next 24 hours when the message ends and the old fear tries to speak again. Because this will happen. After this message, the old voice may come back. It may say, maybe later. It may say, you are not ready. It may say, what if you are wrong? It may say, what if people misunderstand? It may say, what if nothing changes? It may say, what if this costs you? But in the final part, I am going to give you a simple way to answer that voice without panic. You are going to learn the peace after pressure rule. You are going to learn the 24-hour obedience step, and you are going to see how one clean action can become the first visible agreement with the future God has already placed before you. Because the future is not asking you to leap into chaos. It is asking you to take the next clean step. And the next clean step is usually not the step your fear wants to discuss forever. It is the step that remains after the noise fades. It is the step that still feels honest when you stop trying to impress anyone. It is the step that brings a strange kind of peace, not because it is easy, but because it is true. And that is where you must learn the peace after pressure rule. Because not every pressure is panic. Not every discomfort is a warning. Not every trembling means you are outside the will of God. Sometimes pressure comes because something important is asking for your agreement. Sometimes your spirit feels weight because the moment carries meaning. Sometimes your hands shake, not because the step is wrong, but because the old version of you knows it is losing control. There is a difference between pressure and panic. Pressure can come when something sacred is stretching you. Panic comes when fear is trying to take the throne. Pressure can feel heavy because the moment matters. Panic feels chaotic because fear wants to rule the moment. Pressure may make you quiet. Panic makes you scattered. Pressure may bring you to prayer. Panic pushes you into control. Pressure may ask you to slow down and listen. Panic demands that you react before wisdom can speak. So do not only ask, "Does this feel easy?" Ask, "Does this feel clean?" Do not only ask, "Does this remove discomfort?" Ask, "Does this align with the person God has been forming in me?" Do not only ask, "Will everyone understand?" Ask, "Can I take this step and remain honest before God?" Because comfort is not always confirmation. Sometimes comfort is just the old cage with softer lighting. Comfort says, "Stay where nothing challenges you." Peace says, "Walk where God is calling you, even if the path begins with trembling." Comfort says, "Avoid the conversation." Peace says, "Speak with humility and release the outcome." Comfort says, "Keep the door open because being alone feels frightening." Peace says, "Close what keeps poisoning your spirit." Comfort says, "Do not begin until you are certain you cannot fail." Peace says, "Begin faithfully and let God form you through the process." Comfort says, "Do not rest until everyone is pleased." Peace says, "Your obedience to God is more important than your usefulness to people who never stop taking." Comfort protects the old version. Peace prepares the new one. And the peace God gives does not always feel like ease in the beginning. Sometimes it feels like a strange steadiness beneath the shaking. Sometimes it feels like a quiet yes beneath the trembling. Sometimes it feels like a clean grief when you release what you wanted but know you cannot carry anymore. Sometimes it feels like silence after you finally stop explaining yourself to people who were committed to misunderstanding you. Sometimes it feels like a door closing without hatred. Sometimes it feels like a beginning that scares you, but does not violate your spirit. That is why you must learn to listen beneath the first wave. The first wave may be fear. The first wave may be old memory. The first wave may be the voice of someone who wounded you. The first wave may be shame. The first wave may be the survival pattern that has been trying to protect you for years. But the first wave is not always the final truth. Let it pass. Let the noise speak. Let the old fear make its argument. Then ask yourself, what remains? When panic has spent its words, is there still a quiet knowing? When fear has shown you every possible disaster, is there still a clean sense that this is the step? When the need to impress people fades, is there still a simple obedience standing there? When the old wound stops screaming, is there still a soft invitation from God? That is where many answers are found. Not in the loudest emotion, not in the most dramatic sign, not in the first reaction, but in the quiet thing that remains after the noise fades. And if you want to test the choice without making your mind spin in circles, do this within yourself. Do not move your body. Do not force an answer. Do not turn this into another performance. Simply picture the choice in front of you as a small doorway. Not a grand gate, not a shining palace entrance, just a small doorway, quiet, plain, almost easy to overlook, but your name is written on it. Behind you, picture the familiar cycle, the delay, the overthinking, the explaining, the people-pleasing, the old comfort that never really gave you peace, the old pattern that promised safety while quietly stealing your strength, the old fear that kept saying, one more day, one more sign, one more excuse, one more reason to wait. Now look at the small doorway in front of you. Beyond that doorway, you do not need to see the whole road. You do not need to know every result. You do not need to know who will understand. You do not need to know how God will work out every detail. You only need to sense whether the air on the other side feels cleaner than the air behind you. Ask your spirit this question: does this doorway lead me closer to obedience or closer to avoidance? Let that question land, not in panic, not in pressure, not in the voice of the people who want the old version of you to remain available, not in the voice of fear that calls every new step dangerous. Let it land in the deepest place inside you that still knows how to recognize truth, because there is a part of you that knows. You may not have the whole plan, but you know the difference between peace and escape. You know the difference between waiting and hiding. You know the difference between surrender and self-betrayal. You know the difference between God's timing and fear's delay. You know when something is hard but holy. You know when something is comfortable but costly. You know when a door is not peaceful anymore. You know when a pattern has expired. You know when God keeps bringing something back to your attention. And today, the invitation is not to change everything. It is to stop lying to yourself about the one thing that keeps returning. This is why the next step must be small enough to obey. Many people lose their future at this stage because they turn one simple act of obedience into a mountain. God says, send the message, and they start imagining the next 10 years. God says, begin the work, and they start worrying about whether it will become successful. God says, close the door, and they start panicking about every person who may misunderstand. God says, rest, and they start feeling guilty for not carrying what He never asked them to carry. God says, forgive, and they think forgiveness means pretending nothing hurt. God says, be silent, and they think silence means weakness. God says, speak, and they think one conversation must solve every wound. God says, start small, and they shame themselves, because small does not look impressive. The mind loves to make obedience complicated when fear wants to stay in control. So here is the 24-hour obedience step. Within 24 hours, choose one small action that agrees with the future God has been showing you. Not 10 actions, not a complete life overhaul, not a dramatic announcement, not a desperate attempt to force every door open, not a performance to prove you heard this message. One clean step, one small action, one agreement, one seed. If the choice is to begin, let the first step be small. Do not demand the whole harvest from the first hour. Do not ask the seed to become a tree before it touches the soil. Simply agree with the beginning. Open the document, write the first line, pray the honest prayer, make the plan, clear the space. Take the first movement that says, this dream is no longer buried under fear. If the choice is to stop, let the first step be honest. See yourself taking your hand off the old pattern, not with hatred, not with shame, not with drama, just with holy refusal. Say inside yourself, I no longer feed what is draining my future. I no longer give my energy to what God has been trying to free me from. I no longer call bondage loyalty. I no longer call exhaustion love. I no longer call delay wisdom when my spirit already knows the truth. If the choice is to surrender, let the first step be release. Picture yourself placing the outcome in God's hands, not because you do not care, but because you are tired of trying to control what only God can carry. Some of you are not exhausted because you are weak. You are exhausted because you keep trying to be God in places where He only asked you to trust Him. Release the outcome. Release the timeline. Release the need to know how every person will respond. Release the version of the story your fear keeps rehearsing. If the choice is to speak, let the first step be truth without performance. You do not have to win the conversation. You do not have to punish anyone with your pain. You do not have to decorate the truth so people will approve it. You do not have to speak from the wound. You can speak from the clean place. Clear, humble, firm, free. If the choice is to stay silent, let the first step be trust. Not the silence of fear. Not the silence of self-betrayal. Not the silence that keeps you trapped, but the silence that says, I do not need to explain what God is already defending. I do not need to perform my innocence. I do not need to make people understand what they are committed to twisting. I can protect the oil. I can guard my peace. I can let God speak where my words would only feed the fire. If the choice is to rest, let the first step be receiving. Turn off the voice that says, you are only valuable when you are useful. Let your body learn that stillness is not failure. Let your mind learn that rest is not rebellion against purpose. Let your spirit learn that God can work while you sleep. Because sometimes, the most obedient thing you can do is stop carrying what God never placed on your shoulders. If the choice is to forgive, let the first step be release, not denial. Forgiveness does not mean what happened was acceptable. Forgiveness does not mean access is restored. Forgiveness does not mean wisdom disappears. Forgiveness means you are tired of letting the pain sit in the center of your future. It means you refuse to let the person who wounded you become the hidden ruler of every decision you make. If the choice is to say no, let the first step be courage. You do not have to explain your boundary until it becomes a courtroom. You do not have to make your no beautiful enough for people who benefited from your yes. You do not have to apologize for protecting what God is healing. Sometimes no is not rejection. Sometimes no is stewardship. Sometimes no is worship. Sometimes no is the first evidence that you finally believe your peace matters. This is how a future begins. Not always with thunder. Sometimes with a decision so simple, your ego almost rejects it. But simple does not mean weak. Simple means clear, and clarity is powerful when you obey it. There is a reason Scripture speaks of appointed time. Not every moment carries the same weight. Some moments are ordinary. Some moments are invitations. Some moments are turning points disguised as regular days. And when God places a small instruction inside an appointed moment, the step may look small, but the timing makes it sacred. That is why today matters. Not because you must panic. Not because everything will disappear if you do not move perfectly. Not because God is threatening you, but because your spirit knows when a window has opened. Your spirit knows when a season is turning. Your spirit knows when the old way has become too heavy to keep pretending it is peace. Your spirit knows when the thing you call preparation has quietly turned into delay. Your spirit knows when God has already spoken enough for the next step. And maybe this is the first time you are not being asked to prove your strength. Maybe this is the first time you are being asked to trust your formation. You have been formed in hidden places. You have been formed in seasons where nobody clapped for your survival. You have been formed in the delay. You have been formed in the disappointment. You have been formed in the unanswered questions. You have been formed in the lonely obedience nobody saw. You have been formed in the nights when you had to choose faith with tears in your eyes. You have been formed in the moments when you wanted to quit, but something holy kept you breathing. You have been formed in the wilderness. And God does not waste formation. He did not bring you through all of that just so you could keep asking fear what to do next. This is where your identity must rise. You are not just a person trying to make a decision. You are a chosen one, standing at the edge of a future that requires a new agreement. You are the seer when you recognize what others ignore. You can feel when something has expired. You can sense when a room is no longer aligned. You can notice when peace leaves a place before the evidence appears. Do not hate your sensitivity. It is not a weakness when it is surrendered to God. It is part of how you discern the door. You are the cycle breaker when you choose differently from the pattern that raised you, trained you, wounded you, or controlled you. The old cycle may say, react. You can choose peace. The old cycle may say, hide. You can choose truth. The old cycle may say, stay small, so people stay comfortable. You can choose obedience. The old cycle may say, overthink until you feel safe. You can choose the clean step. You are the builder when you honor small foundations. Builders do not mock foundations because they are underground. They understand that what is hidden carries what will one day be visible. The seed, the foundation, the daily decision, the quiet yes, the private discipline, the unseen surrender, these are not small to a builder. You are the spiritual warrior when you do not collapse under pressure. Not because you never feel afraid, but because fear no longer gets the final word. A warrior is not someone who has no trembling. A warrior is someone who can hear fear talking and still obey God with a steady spirit. And you are the voice when you learn that speaking and silence can both be sacred. Sometimes your voice is needed to tell the truth. Sometimes your silence is needed to protect the oil. Sometimes your words open a door. Sometimes your refusal to explain closes one. Wisdom knows the difference. That is who God has been forming. Not a reckless person, not a desperate person, not a person who has to chase every open door, not a person who must prove their calling to people who are committed to misunderstanding them. He has been forming someone who can obey small, and that is a rare kind of strength. Because many people only want obedience when it looks impressive. They want the stage, they want the harvest, they want the announcement, they want the sudden breakthrough, they want the visible reward. But God often asks, can I trust you with the seed? Can I trust you with the small door? Can I trust you with the private yes? Can I trust you with the quiet decision before anyone knows what it cost you? Chosen one, that is where your future is being tested, not to disqualify you, to reveal you. And I hear the Father saying, what you call small, I may be using as the seed of your next season. What you call ordinary, I may have marked as appointed. What you keep delaying, I may have placed there as the first domino. What you keep minimizing, I may be using to show you who you have become. So do not despise the instruction because it is quiet. Do not reject the door because it is small. Do not delay the step because it does not come with applause. Some doors are small because pride cannot fit through them. Some steps are quiet because ego cannot perform them. Some instructions are simple because God is not trying to confuse you. He is trying to reveal whether you will obey without being entertained. Now, before this message closes, I want to bring this back to clarity one more time, because when you leave this message, the noise may try to return. The same thoughts, the same doubts, the same overthinking, the same mental fog, the same fear wearing a wise voice, the same old pattern asking for one more day. And this is why your inner environment matters. If your mind has been loud, if your thoughts have been scattered, if your focus has been weak, if you have felt like the instruction is buried under emotional static, do not shame yourself. Create space. Pray. Breathe. Get quiet. Write down the step. Ask God for wisdom. And if you feel drawn to use a simple support, the 7-minute audio practice I mentioned earlier, the Genius Song, is linked in the description and pinned comment. Use it before you make the decision. Use it before prayer. Use it before journaling. Use it when your mind feels noisy and you need to return to a calmer place of focus. Again, it is not a magic shortcut. It is not a replacement for God. It is not a guarantee that every person will experience the same result, but it may help support the clarity and mental stillness you need before taking the next clean step. And sometimes that matters more than people understand, because the enemy does not always need to destroy your life. Sometimes he only needs to keep you foggy enough to delay the step. He does not always need to convince you to rebel. Sometimes he only needs to keep you overthinking long enough to miss the window. He does not always need to make you hate your future. Sometimes he only needs to make your mind too loud to recognize the door. So if this message has been speaking directly to your fog, your delay, your fear, your confusion, and your need for clarity, the official link is in the description and pinned comment. Do not search randomly, because there are imitations and fake versions that use similar language. Use the official link only. Look at the information. Pray about it. Use wisdom, and if it feels aligned, let it become a simple 7-minute support as you prepare to take the step God has already been showing you. But remember this, the tool can support clarity. The audio can support focus. The practice can help create space, but only your obedience can plant the seed. Only your yes can agree with the future. Only your step can cross the threshold. So now, bring your attention back to that small doorway inside your mind. Again, do not move. Do not force. Do not try to make the whole future appear. Just see the door. Behind you is the old cycle. The same delay. The same explanation. The same fear asking for one more day. The same pattern promising safety while quietly stealing peace. In front of you is not the whole road. It is only the next clean step. Now picture yourself placing your agreement on that door. Not your hand, if you are driving. Not your body, just your agreement. Like a seal of light resting on the door that says, I will not make fear my God. I will not make delay my shelter. I will not make comfort my calling. I will not make overthinking my altar. I will not keep asking fear to approve what God has already shown me. I will take the step that belongs to today. Let that sentence move through you. I will take the step that belongs to today. Not tomorrow's step. Not next year's step. Not the step that belongs to someone else. Not the step your ego wants to perform. Not the step fear wants to analyze forever. The step that belongs to today. And if that sentence feels true for you, write one short word in the comments when you can. Write, yes. Not as a performance. Not for attention. Let it be a simple agreement. A marker. A witness. A small public seed that says, I am done letting fear make every decision for me. Yes, that is enough. Because sometimes one word becomes a line in the sand. Sometimes one word tells your spirit, we are not going back. Sometimes one word becomes the first visible agreement with the invisible work God has been doing inside you. And when you write yes, do not write it casually. Let it mean, yes, God, I hear you. Yes, I will stop delaying what you have made clear. Yes, I will stop demanding the whole road before taking the next step. Yes, I will stop letting old wounds rule new doors. Yes, I will stop calling fear wisdom. Yes, I will take the step that belongs to today. Now let this be sealed over you. May God give you clarity that does not need chaos to be real. May He give you courage that does not depend on applause. May He give you discernment to know the difference between peace and comfort, between timing and delay, between wisdom and fear wearing a wise voice, between surrender and self-betrayal, between a closed door and a door you are afraid to open. May He show you the small door without overwhelming you with the whole road. May He protect you from reckless movement, but also He deliver you from spiritual hesitation. May He quiet the old memories that rise up every time you are about to obey. May He heal the part of you that believes every step forward will cost you everything. May He remind you that not every beginning has to be dramatic to be divine. May He remind you that a seed is still a seed before anyone sees the tree. May He remind you that your future does not require you to become fearless first. It requires you to become faithful. Faithful in the small place. Faithful in the quiet choice. Faithful when fear is still speaking. Faithful when people do not understand. Faithful when the seed is still hidden. Faithful when the door is small. Faithful when the next step is all you can see. Chosen one, you are not waiting helplessly. You are not moving recklessly. You are not abandoned in the middle of the threshold. You are being invited to agree, invited to trust, invited to take the next clean step, invited to plant the seed, invited to stop bowing to the old wound, invited to let the future God prepared for you meet the obedience He is asking from you today. And if the next clean step is all you can see, then that is enough for today. God can guide a faithful step farther than fear can guide a perfect plan. So do not leave this message and return to the old negotiation. Do not ask fear to review what God has already made clear. Do not keep calling the seed small when heaven has already placed a future inside it. Do not wait for every person to understand before you obey the one who called you. Do not demand instant proof from something God is growing in secret. Choose the step He placed before you. Choose the clean yes. Choose the quiet obedience. Choose the seed. And I hear this as the final word over your spirit. Choose the step I placed before you. I will meet you on the other side of obedience. One small choice, one faithful step, one future beginning quietly in the hands of God. And if this message was for you, write yes in the comments. Let heaven see your agreement. Let your spirit hear your decision. Let fear know it no longer has the final word. Yes, the seed is in your hand. The door is in front of you. And the God who brought you this far will not abandon you on the other side of obedience.